Are you ready for Quentin Johnston to make this offense go boom? What is going on? It is Alex coming back at you with another video, and today I'm taking a deep dive into the 2023 Los Angeles Chargers. If you guys are new, feel free to stick around, like, comment, subscribe. You know how YouTube works. Links are in the description. And then, of course, if you guys want to join the Discord, would love for that to happen. Over 700 members there. It's all free. You get to have some all 22 tape studies with me, which are going to be happening very soon because my class is ending. Hallelujah. And we're going to definitely get right into it. So feel free to stop by. Absolutely free. Great community. It's awesome. Let's get right into it. Starting out with the offense, starting from skill position to line, then for defense line to skilled position. Quarterback Justin Herbert needs no introduction. I think that he's one of the more underrated quarterbacks at this point because there's so many haters of him for no reason. Yeah, he hasn't put everything together yet, but all of a sudden, like Lamar Jackson had all of these truthers forever because, he performed here and there, but didn't put it together. But, oh, no, we got to wait. But then all of a sudden, Justin Herbert sometimes not putting it together. I know that's a minority of the people out there. A lot of people love Justin Herbert, but let's calm down any form of hate for this man. Yeah, he needs to put it together in the offseason, but you know what? He's got there. So, that's already broken there. So I think that Justin Herbert's a great quarterback. I think he's a top 5, top 10 quarterback. Could be in the top 5. For some reason, y'all don't understand. I'm not saying it's from 5 to 10. It's saying he's in that range of that 5-10 spot, which could be, a little bit higher, a little bit lower. You never know. Depends on the week, of course. I think that's one of Justin Herbert's biggest flaws is that there is some inconsistency week to week, but he's an absolutely amazing player. One of those guys who's one of my first misses of all time because I was just like, I even looking back when I was studying Penny Sewell, I was like, damn, this guy makes some big mistakes. But, he's been able to calm down his arm a little bit, been able to make some big plays, but, been a little bit more risk averse, which has been, pretty damn productive. He's been improving year after year. I think he's going to be a top 5 quarterback this year, and that's wonderful. You have Austin Eckler, who has demanded a trade here and there. People do that for drama, new contract, whatever you want to call it. But you got Isaiah Spiller behind him as well as a nice core running backs as well. Austin Eckler is a very talented back. I think he's a very good guy. I just hope that, the rumors are going to calm down a little bit and that he actually does have a bigger role. But then we're looking at the wide receivers here. I don't really talk too much about Horvath. I mean, fullbacks are fullbacks. Unless they're Kyle Juszczyk, there's not really one that I think is worth devoting a lot of our time to. You got Mike Williams there, brand new addition, Quentin Johnston there on the right, and then Keenan Allen in the slot. I think the only issue with this is the lack of true deep threats, and you have that with Guyton, you have that with Darius Davis. So I think that the only flaw is that they're not starting, or they're not, in my opinion, true starter quality. But you guys have 3 amazing guys who can make the most after the catch with their body. You have a good skill set, just are lacking that top tier deep threat player. Tight end, you got Gerald Everett. I was hoping with Kellen Moore that you guys would be going a little bit more aggressive on the tight ends. I think most of the NFL thought that Dalton Kincaid was kind of the guy to pigeonhole right here, and was not the case. But, we'll see. Kellen Moore loves his tight ends, so we'll see if Gerald Everett takes a big step up. I think that he could be that dude who just ends up ascending to the top. Right now, I think the taste that's left in everyone's mouth is that sour touchdown route that he ran that, I think got pick sixed. And very unfortunate, but, they ran the play to him like 3 times in a row. And then they just tried to force it a 4th. And, we all got some form of gas tank, and apparently Gerald's was empty at that point. Looking at the O-line, you got Rashawn Slater, one of the best left tackles in the NFL. Zion Johnson, first-round pick from a little bit over a year ago. I had a second-round grade on him. I was one of those guys who was known as a hater, even though I think he's a good player, and he's been a good player. Corey Linsley, consistent, solid center. I hope that he continues to remain healthy and, all that. I think health is one of the big issues when it comes to offensive linemen. We've seen even some of the best, like Quentin Nelson, fall off their pedestal because of injury, and especially in such a physically intensive, there we go, position, it does sometimes lend a hand to be a little bit more healthy. Then you got Jamari Sawyer there. I believe he was a 6th-round pick. I thought that was an absolute steal, and it has been. Trey Pipkins, I just don't like Trey that much. It's just one of my things, so I'm going to put him as the worst player. But Other players of note, Jordan McFadden, drafted this past year. I believe he was a tackle there for Clemson, being pushed into guard, which is some good depth there. Then again, Darius Davis and Jalen Guyton mentioned before. And Palmer, I like Josh Palmer. He's a good player. I'm pretty sure his first name's Josh. Y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. I really like Palmer. He's actually really good in franchise, too, if you guys do play some Madden franchise. But I think Rookie of the Year obviously is going to be to a starting boundary receiver in Quentin Johnston. And then, of course, I talked about that lack of the explosion with deep threat there. I think Jalen Guyton still going to be one of those dudes that Herbert can rely on deep. Jumping into the defense with the defensive front, you have Morgan Fox, who had over 40 pressures last year. Honestly, a big surprise. He was one of those dudes where I know that he's talented, but not someone who's as productive as he was. Definitely a big diamond in the rough. Sebastian Joseph Day had 20 pressures last year as well and has been super consistent. I like him there for sure. Austin Johnson, not a guy I'm a huge fan of. Had 7 pressures in 7 games, and I believe an 18.5% missed tackle rate. Not a huge fan. Outside linebackers, Khalil Mack, not the guy who he was when he went prime time to Chicago for multiple firsts, but still a very valued veteran. Was potentially on the chopping block, if I'm not mistaken, but I think still a valued asset of the team. Then you got Joey Bosa there as well. Love Joey Bosa. He's the cornerstone of the defense. It is what it is. Then you got the linebackers here. Kenneth Murray, he's never taken that big step up, which is why you've had to be able to draft guys like Dian Henley and then bring in Eric Kendricks. But Eric Kendricks, man, I don't know how y'all keep stealing dudes. I mean, LA last year, I know it's the Rams, not y'all, but Bobby Wagner for absolutely nothing. This year, Eric Kendricks to the Chargers for nothing. I don't know what these LA teams are doing, but y'all are doing it right. You're doing it right. Eric Kendricks is an amazing addition because people have been saying, including myself, that linebacker's been one of the biggest issues, and you guys have solved it for sure. Safety-wise, you have Derwin James, and it sounds like Alohu Gilman. I'm gonna be honest. His name is hard to pronounce, but his stats are even harder to look at. Not a great player, if I'm going to be honest. But you have JT Woods behind him, who I have a good amount of faith in. I think he could be one of those guys who I considered there for that sleeper position. Derwin James, one of the best safeties when healthy. You have a lot of good players. Jasir Taylor, not necessarily a dude who I'm going to stick my neck out for personally. Don't think he's that good. Asante Samuel, I love him to death. He was one of my guys coming out of Florida State. And then Michael Davis is a good player too, but behind him, J.C. Jackson, the big I think it was like $87 million acquisition last year. I know that hurts a bit to hear, but honestly, the fact is you guys have good enough players to cover for him in the first place. And I don't know if JC's had that type of reality check, and maybe that's exactly what he needs to have a bounce back. So gotta love that for sure. Another guy of note who I did not talk about, I don't know if I mentioned Tuli Tupulotu, but one of those guys who, after the draft, I realized I didn't put enough respect on his name. I think that he actually will end up starting over Khalil Mack eventually because I think he's that good. But Jared Clark, one of my favorite players, I think he fell due to injury concerns. But, he was a Senior Bowl standout to me out of Coastal Carolina. Incredible player. He really is. He's one of those guys who I'm very excited to say. I feel like I have a knack for those deeper players at defensive interior that end up sticking to rosters. It was that Johnson guy who's Eric Johnson on the Colts, and then I believe there's a guy on the Bengals. Like, I just randomly, whenever I watch these guys at the Senior Bowl, I feel like I can pick out the guys who are good enough to stick to rosters later on, and I feel like this is one of them for sure. Let's jump right into the schedule though. You start off really hot, man. Versus Miami. Miami's a good team, but I also think that playing at home with this talented roster, you guys can kick some ass. Tennessee's a tough one, but I think you finally have the linebacker strength to be able to handle it. Minnesota as well. Minnesota's a tough team, but I just don't think they're tough enough. Vegas is kind of a crap team, and you get to face them in LA. So you guys get to take a dub there. Then off a bye week, and having having Dallas come to you. That's a pretty good series of events to happen, having at home as well as fully rested. Dallas is a damn good team. Then you go to Kansas City. That's going to be a toughie. Kansas City, again, very, very tough team to beat. But I think I have the Kansas City Chiefs taking week 18 off. So as much as I would love to say you split it for talent reasons, which I think you still probably would, they still end up taking the dub and splitting. Now, you face the Bears. I think the Bears need to temper their expectations. Some people think they could really be like a 10 to 15 win team. And I'm like, pause, pause. Even 10 to 12 is a bit of a stretch, a very big bit of stretch. But I think you guys are much better than them. And you're at home. New York, it's going to start getting a little bit colder. The climate's going to be a bit different. You're not going to be in a dome, so to speak. And then you're also going to be facing an Aaron Rodgers with, one, a fire lit under his ass, which we haven't seen in a hot minute, but two, he's going to be finally working very well with a very talented core there in New York. Then we look at Detroit. You get to face them at home, and another team where I just don't think they did enough to be able to truly compete. Even though they did last year, I certainly don't believe that they have the competitive advantage as much as I want to say they will. I just don't think they hit the draft well enough. And they got players I liked too, a lot of them. But they just didn't address their biggest needs, which in my opinion were a true corner one. I like Cam Sutton, but didn't really address it properly. And then a wide receiver one. They had Quentin Johnston on the board for him, speaking of, and decided to not opt for that route. They decided to go after a linebacker as well as a running back. And even though I've drafted all those players, including Sam Laporta, to them, I just certainly believe it was a misuse of the draft capital because they left the biggest vacancies wide open. So I think that there's going to certainly be an adjustment period there. Then you got at Green Bay. Again, it's a good team, and this could be one of those sneaky wins, but I just don't have enough faith in Jordan Love, and it's one of those games I considered being a big upset. Then you got Baltimore taking the W. Actually, no, y'all take the W. Huh, there you go. See, I'm showing y'all a lot of love today. Baltimore is a damn good team, but you also face them at home. I also think the linebackers are good enough to and fast enough to contain Lamar Jackson. So it's a big factor there for sure. Then you go to New England. Bill Belichick just knows how to sometimes unlock the worst in some players, and I feel like he does that with Justin Herbert. Then we have New England. Just kidding. Just talked about that. Denver. I have y'all splitting. Denver's a good team. I posted the video probably yesterday because I'm recording it right after. And, Denver, it's a very good squad. As long as they stay healthy and can kind of again, light a fire under their ass, they're going to be fine. Then you got Vegas again. They're not good enough. So I think you do certainly have the ability to, sweep them. Vegas fans, I'm not excited to post that video. Then you have Buffalo. I'm being very generous, but you guys are at home. I'm going to give you guys the tip of the nod of the cap. And then you, again, just talked about splitting with Denver and Kansas City. So you guys technically moved down in the conference, but whoop-de-doo. It's just because Buffalo won their division, so they're technically fourth. You guys kind of would end up being fourth because based on this record, you guys are in that tier. But, I'm just following what playoff predictors put you guys at. So that's going to be the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you guys on the far side. Peace.